Life is a gift, really. Life is a gift that we're all given, and that we have this unique set of circumstances and set of abilities, and we get to experience it. I think the opposite of life would be a lack of awareness. Because when we're involved in life, when something's alive, there's a certain vitality to it. And the opposite of that is that lack of vitality. And for me, the lack of vitality really exists in a situation in which there's no awareness of vitality present. So it's kind of this mindless, robotic lack of presence. I guess you might say the vehicle that we're communicating through is this wonderful technology that every time I turn it on, I'm just so amazed that it actually works. But it really doesn't have any awareness of a vitality that it participates in. And nor does it have the ability to kind of stand on its own in that vitality. And so that to me is kind of a nice metaphor there as well. The way I look at death is a part of the cycle of life. And therefore, I really don't see death as being the opposite of life. I see death as being something that is on the continuum of life. I think the purpose of our experience is to fully inhabit it, and to find a way to really connect to it. And so the purpose of your existence is to fully inhabit that existence. And there's never been another Matt Mumber. There'll never be another fill in the blank. And that uniqueness, that kind of infinite gift that's given to each of us, the more we can experience that, the more we fulfill the purpose that we're given in having been gifted this life. The way that I know that I'm living that purpose is that everything seems to flow in a certain way, and that there don't seem to be any mistakes. Everything seems to have a reason and fit in some way. And that's when I know that things are moving along in a way that learning from what's happening. Now, what is happening may be very sad or very happy or very joyful, but it's actually happening and I'm actually experiencing it. That's the way I know that things are going in the way that is fulfilling its purpose. There was always just something about the field of medicine that called to me ever since I was very young. And like I would go to my pediatrician. I remember he was this little 4'3" gentleman. His name was Dr. Procopio. And he was just the nicest guy. And some of the things he did just struck so true with me. Like my mom was, kind of an anxious mother sometimes. I was the first, and I remember one time she called him and said, "Hey, my son just ate a dime. What am I supposed to do?" And he said, "Well, as long as it doesn't come out 2 nickels, then everything will be okay." So again, there's so many facets to being a doctor. You can be a coach, you can be a priest, you can be a mechanic, you can be a counselor, a guide, a friend, a family member. There's just so many parts to it. And I really like being with people in situations in which they're exploring life at a place where they're tender, where they're fragile, because then I feel like I can meet them at that same place in my fragility. And I feel like that's always been a little bit of a strength and a weakness for me, is that I enjoy meeting people at the tender and fragile and vulnerable places. And I feel comfortable being with people in a tender and fragile and vulnerable way. So medicine kind of fit that need. There's been lots of profound lessons, but one of them that just kind of sticks with me and resonates with me. I was a medical student, and we had a group of medical students that got together to experience different forms of medicine outside of traditional Western medicine. And so back then it was just called alternative medicine. And so we got together at one of our meetings with a Native American medicine man. And so he invited us to a sweat lodge. That was like a healing sweat lodge. And so I went to the sweat lodge, and none of my other group members showed up. I was there with him and a bunch of other people I didn't know. But we went in the sweat lodge. During this ceremony, you're allowed to ask one question of the lodge leader. And of course, you're in the middle of it. You're, sweating horribly. There's these glowing hot rocks in the middle of this complete darkness, And I asked him. I told him. I said, I want to become a great healer. How do I do that? And immediately, the answer, he shot it right back, with authority, and said, in order to have the power to heal, you have to accept responsibility for the power to kill. And that just kind of resonated with me. And, it's like one of these things, what people say, it just strikes you and you can't remember anything else for a while. And it's just so many layers to that. There's, of course, the very superficial layer, which is, unless you know what you're doing, unless you're competent, you can really hurt somebody. And that's kind of the obvious, superficial layer. But then the more deep layer is that, just like everything in this world, healing and killing are two sides of the same coin. They're non-dual, I guess. I know some of your writing has been from the non-dual perspective. And non-duality is real. It's difficult to hold because it doesn't make any sense. It's a paradox, but you can't have healing without killing. And so you can't have beauty without ugliness, That was a very deep lesson that has stuck with me as a part of my training and really as a part of what I do every day, being able to be there and know that sometimes healing is very, very difficult work.